And first of all, thank you to the Wellington School of Business and Government for inviting me here. It's always a pleasure to be back in Wellington despite the gloomy weather. And also an honor to be standing here today. The last time I was at Victoria University, Wellington, I was on the other side. I was on the bench like you listening to lecture. And so it's really an honor to be here. What I'd like to share with you today is, as the title said, building inclusive financial system in emerging economies, the lesson from Cambodia digital leaps. I'm not sure how. All right. So this is what I'm going to talk about, give you an overview of Cambodia's today, and then its history, before coming to the role of the central bank where I'm working, and payment system development in Cambodia, Waka, the project, the backbone payment system using blockchain technology that we're using now in Cambodia, and some key takeaways. So in terms of geography and demography, we're a country in Southeast Asia, a very small open economy, mainly a dollarized economy. About 85% of the country is dollarized. We have a population of 17.2 million, and the majority of the people still live in the rural area. In terms of GDP, it's about 46.3 billion US dollar. Something that is worth noting is that Cambodia was able to increase its GDP per capita by tenfold from 1998 to 2023, and it's now classified as a low middle income country. Its growth rate is estimated for this year about 5.6%. This is after adjustment from the recent trade policies. You've probably heard that Cambodia was slapped with the highest tariff rate of all the country in the world, with 49%. So with adjustment, we think we'll manage to get somewhere around 5.6%, but we'll see. The negotiation is underway. And what it's so-called negotiation, it's more about what the US want, and we'll just agree to it. But before COVID, the country experienced on average 7% growth. The key sector driving this growth is manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, and construction. Again, some key indicator on the success story of Cambodia as the post-war country is our ability to reduce poverty from a lot in 1990. I'll show you some history later, to about 17.8% in 2029. The number also increased a little bit from as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. From a historical context, it's the birthplace of the Khmer Empire, home to Angkor. Angkor is a complex. It's actually the biggest cultural heritage in the world. So the UNESCO distinguished two things: the natural world heritage and the cultural world heritage. So in terms of the cultural world heritage, Angkor is actually the biggest. In this complex, we have about 2,000, probably more temples to discover. We then also, like many other countries in the world, fall under either protectorate or colonies of the European country. But unfortunately, a short-lived independence suffered major setback during the Khmer Rouge regime. It was a genocidal regime. Now, taking you back to history of money in Cambodia, and why the title was From Barter to a Blockchain Technology, and blockchain money on blockchain, so cryptocurrency that you hear, central bank digital currency that you also are hearing, are considered the most modern form of money known today. And barter was also the most basic form of exchange. So Cambodia in the early days was very actively trading with the world. It was one of the main centers for the maritime Silk Road between East and West. And yet it didn't have a monetary system back then. So I'm talking about from the 1st century up until the French protectorate. Now, the reason why we said this is a picture from the Money Economy Museum that was curated by the National Bank of Cambodia. The reason we said this, and it's still debatable, is that from all the findings, from all the excavations at the archaeological site, we haven't found any trace of Cambodian money. We did find money from other empire. We did find money from the Roman Empire, although we don't know whether the Roman actually came to the Cambodian empire, but we know that the Roman came to India, and we know for sure the Indian came to Cambodia. And so we saw this trace of money. We also saw money from other empire in the world, the Chinese money, and so on and so forth. So what we know is that Cambodia was a trading empire, but we didn't have our monetary system. We didn't have our own money. We were using other countries' money. And that also means that we were already a dollarized economy back in the days. But there were attempts by some kings, particularly in the 7th century, to introduce a coin minted with the name of the capital city and the reigning king's name. And this is very important finding. And in fact, this coin is the only coin, the golden one, that we have in the entire world. We think that it was very fewly minted. Second, that those who have found this minted coin must have probably melted and used it for other purpose without consideration to its historical importance. But so we were very fortunate to have one with us. And so this says that this particular king, tried to show its sovereignty and integrity of the territory by issuing this coin. It says that if you use this coin within this limit, this is the capital city and I am the king. So it was a very important sign of a king wanting to show its sovereignty. And interestingly also, during the peak of the civilization, of the Khmer civilization from the 800 to 1400 AD, money of any form seemed to disappear from circulation. There was sign of coins, but those are used mainly as metal instead of money. Now, why it is important? Because as a civilization, very sophisticated in architecture, very sophisticated in art, in religion, in astrology, without money, people really wonder how did this empire manage to grow its economy. Now, I want to share with you three main functions of money, and we have the former deputy governor of the New Zealand Reserve Bank here who can add on this. One, money it's a unit of account. When you don't have a unit of account, it's very difficult to do business. Now we understand that a cup of coffee costs, say, $3. If you go to the next shop, and the cup of coffee will cost you 1 meter of cloth, I mean, how do you do business with this? And this is exactly what's happening then. When we look at the trade in Cambodia along the river, the Mekong River, which is also one of the biggest, the longest river in Southeast Asia, as you move up the river, the needs are different. And so people would tend to, they have a different means of exchange. So an iron bar would equal in certain part of the country to 1 chicken plus 1 meter of cloth plus 1 slave. If you move up, then you will have 1 iron bar equal to 2 slaves plus, 2 eggs and so on and so forth. So without this unit of account, it's very difficult to do business. Second function of money is a means of exchange, a means of payment. And when you do business, it's very, even in your day-to-day life, if you have for instance, a cow, and you want to exchange this cow for wheat to bake bread or pasta or whatsoever, what you'll have to do without this means of exchange is that you will have to carry this cow or walk the cow and find someone who has wheat, and not only someone who has wheat, but someone who has wheat and who is willing to exchange the wheat with the cow. Because if the one person who has wheat say, I don't want a cow, I want cloth, what do? You have to walk the cow to find someone with cloth and say if this person with cloth is willing to exchange their cloth with the cow. And so this would take a whole day. It's a journey, an expedition just to get wheat to bake your bread. So without this mean of exchange, it is very difficult to do business, to grow in economies. Now you have money, you can take your New Zealand dollar and you go, or your credit card and whatever for money that you have, go to a store, buy it, and whoever got this money can go and buy whatever they need themselves later. The third is the store of value. So the three main important functions of money is unit of account, mean of exchange, and store of value. The store of value is also important, particularly in the ancient days, because let's say and we think that one of the reasons that contributed to the fall of the Angkor Empire was also the lack of this monetary system, because when you don't have a store of value, your fiscal policies will have to then change according to the lifespan of whatever you have, your livestock or your slave or your crop, because this is how you're going to pay for people to work in hospital. This is what you're going to use to pay for the army. And so when you wage a war, and you pay your soldier with rice and crop and cattle, you would have to see how long you can store these commodity without it going perishable. Instead, when your enemy has a very simple concept of IOU, where they can give a piece of coin and they say, we'll come back and collect the rice later, this would then put you at a very much disadvantage. Now, the money disappeared, but then during the French protectorate, and again, New Zealand was a colony. A protectorate means that we retained the main function, at least the jury. So we still had a king, we still had ministers and so on, as opposed to a colony where the colonized country imposed a general governor onto your country. A protectorate, you retain all this. Actually, the jure de facto, they still control everything anyway. So Cambodia was a French protectorate, and the reason it was a French protectorate is very unlike any other countries. There's never blood shed over this. Our king actually wrote a letter to the French, please come and protect us. Because we were sandwiched between Thailand and Vietnam. We're a much bigger country than ours. And as these two countries tend to encroach onto Cambodia, the king understood that we need a third power to come to protect. And so that's why he wrote a letter, invite the French to come and protect. So the French came. So Cambodia was under protectorate. Laos part of it was under protectorate, part of it under colonial, as well as Vietnam. Back then, there was no Vietnam, there was Annam, there was the Cham. And so different part of the country was under either colonial, a colony, or a protectorate. And so the French introduced what we think is quite modern back in the day, is a monetary union. So Cambodia had Cambodia, Laos, all these three countries called the Indochina region. So Indochina had a monetary union called the piastre. The piastre was introduced, but unfortunately the piastre was I would consider it a false marriage between money economy, because the value of the piastre has nothing to do with the Cambodian economy. It has more to do with the economy in Vietnam, where most of the French interest lies in the plantation in Vietnam. And also money is also identity. And if you look at the piastre here in the picture, there's no way Cambodian can identify themselves with whatever that was printed. Either it's become a caricature. So in the Europeans way, the French mind is that Asian look like this with the eye, very long, and it's almost like an alien. And then when you have this money that was printed, you have La Marianne, which is the symbol of the French, putting its arms around a Vietnamese guy. And so it's very sort of patronizing from the colonized country. And this is shown through pictures. So money in the Cambodian history hasn't been something that is quite glorious in a sense. And barter has always been the way of it since. Fortunately, in 1953, Cambodia managed to get its independence, again, without any bloodshed. It has to do a four-party negotiation to get the monetary independence. So we've got our political, military, and court independence on the 9th of November, 53, but then the monetary independence not until 54. So about a year later, when we issued our first currency. However, that first currency introduced in 1953 was very short-lived, because in the 60s, of course, we had our currency, the banking system flourished, but with the pressure of the Cold War and many other things, the then king Norom Sihanouk, decided to. So Cambodia. This is from the book of King Sihanouk, and of course, if you read many history book, it will tell you differently. So there's a context of a constant encroachment between US-backed Thailand and Southern Vietnam, and for that reason, the king has decided to renounce the US aid in 1963, and to compensate for that, he had to include a mix of moderate socialism in his policy. And so he started to nationalize some of the some of the companies who, after nationalization, didn't work well, and that's created sort of an instability within the country. So in 1970, the king was there's a coup against King Norodom Sihanouk, and since then there's a lot of instability. The money that was issued by the central bank become very volatile. This is to show you the value of this first one is the value of the money. It has tremendously depreciated. The value of rice, pork, and fish, the main staple of the people, experience inflation by 3,000%, and this makes people's life unbearable, and that's create anger and for this new regime. And then began the dark period of genocide. When people are angry, what happened is it tend to go for whatever alternative it has at the time. And I mean, this is what happened today, unfortunately, also, but we've seen this in our history, and this is very important to learn history so that we don't make the same mistake. So when people were angry, money was very volatile. There's no trust in the government. There's no trust in money. There's no trust in anything. And so when the Pol Pot regime came in, people embraced it. People actually cheered for them for half a day before they evacuated everyone to the cities. And with this, the leader of the Khmer Rouge believed in a very utopian agrarian society where there's no class and everyone is equal. Now, it's a very nice concept, except that the execution was very cruel as well. So first thing first was that money was destroyed, abolished, economy abolished, religions abolished, family unit abolished. Children had to live separately from their parents. And as a result, 1.7 million people were starved and executed. So this is what I just mentioned to you about the impact on the economy, on the institutions, and so on and so forth. This is the picture of the Cambodian Central Bank before and after the Khmer Rouge. In 1975, it was bombed because it was the symbol of capitalism. And so you bombed the bank, you abolish money, it means that you abolish capitalism. So 1979, Cambodia was liberated. And again, this is another big debate. If you know a little bit about Cambodia history, the Vietnamese forces came in. For many Cambodians who suffered starvations and execution, it was a liberation. For those Cambodian who's overseas and who look at it from afar, they will see it as an invasion of the Vietnamese force. But one thing for sure was that they overstayed their welcome. And so there's still this. So 1979, Phnom Penh was freed, and we had to reestablish the central bank. And it was not until 1980 that we reintroduced the real. So we started to print money again. And it was very difficult for people to get adjusted to it because they were so used to the barter system. Even after the independence, when money was introduced, money was used in the capital city, in the main urban area, but people in the rural area, they were still live by a barter system. So when you tell people now your salary, the government official, and say that now your salary is going to be in real and give them a piece of paper, it's quite a shock. And so to sort of try to compensate that, in the 1980s, was the government do an arbitrary exchange where 1 real was equal to the condensed milk can, 4 condensed milk cans of rice, and it will be equal to 25 cents US dollar. It's completely arbitrary. There's nothing that justifies that, because then the country was put under embargo. Very interestingly was that the new government was put under embargo. The Khmer Rouge government had a seat at the United Nations. So real was introduced. At that time, the central bank was so between 79 to 93, it was liberated. The Khmer Rouge is still around. It was still civil war. The central bank played the role of central bank and commercial bank. So we print money, we lend money to the government and to the public, which is completely against the concept nowadays where central bank should not lend to government. At that time, it was a one-tier system. The central bank did everything, lend to the government, lend to the public, and so on and so forth. And as you can understand, the trust in money back then was also very weak and fragile. But when the United Nations for Transitional Administration came in 1991, the US dollar came along, and this is not an administrative measure or anything. US dollar then stay in Cambodia until today. People just adopt US dollar willingly. So it was a $2 billion UN operation, still remain today the most expensive UN operation anywhere in the world. And so that's how the US dollar, and then now again, you see the local currency, the role of local currency diminishing. Of course, the country went through many rounds of economic reform until we had our first general elections in 93. From the banking sector, the law on the organization and conduct of the National Bank was promulgated in 1996. So if you look at the normal functioning of the National Bank of Cambodia, it's actually very, very short-lived. And until now, and throughout the years, we had done many reforms in the financial system. Now, this is the core mandates of the central bank to maintain price stability, to support sustainable economic growth, to ensure financial stability, and contribute to low unemployment. So this is what we do now. We don't lend to the government. We don't lend to the public. And we let the private banks do this. This is not different from any other. The role of the National Bank of Cambodia is not very different from any other central bank, except one may be different from the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, for instance, is that we regulate and supervise the commercial banks. I don't know if the Reserve Bank is regulating still. So we regulate and supervise commercial banks. We manage the foreign exchange of the country. So different central bank has different roles. Some central bank just manage the monetary policy. They don't supervise and regulate banks. Some central banks, for instance, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, don't manage their own foreign exchange reserve. It's somebody else doing it. So Cambodia has some sort of a universal central banking role. So we do everything ourselves. As a supervised authorities, we supervise bank financial institution. We also supervise and regulate the country payment system. And this is what I want to focus my presentation on. Here is the new beginning from 1993 onwards, economic growth. I mentioned to you about 7% annual growth. In terms of exchange rate, also a very stable exchange rate for the past 25 years. However, we have challenges. We have a very fragmented banking system. We have low financial literacy and access to finance, heavily dollarized economy, but we also have a high mobile penetration, very young tech-savvy populations. And COVID-19 to me was a silver lining where we can introduce our payment system. Now, to recap before we go into this payment system, it's an interesting start. Cambodia offers a unique example of financial system restart from having nothing, from historically without having any money, just based, the whole economy functions on a barter system. And 79 is a very 75 to 79, very recent history. And there's no other history, contemporary history, where a government abolished money completely, like the case of Cambodia. But we managed to overcome those challenges and now introduce a very advanced digital payment system. Now, this is the existing payment landscape in Cambodia. We have a very young population, as I mentioned, 7.2 million, but 65% are under the year of 30, under 30 year old. We have 20.7 million e-wallets. We have 21.8 mobile connection. We also have 20 million internet subscribers. This is very important in these digital days and ages. Access to electricity, one, which we tend to take for granted, not for emerging economies. And two is access to internet. So because we have this infrastructure, we were able then to push our financial inclusion agenda through digitalization. These are the different infrastructure we have at the National Bank of Cambodia. We have about 6 of them now, but the one that is now functioning and the core is the last one, the Bakong one, introduced in 2020, but it's now become almost like replaced any other things that we have. The NCS is the National Clearing System. This is a check clearing system for banks. And then we have online banking, again, for banks and government for government ministries and agencies. We have our own trading platform, NBCP. The CSS is the share switch for cards. So any proprietary cards issued by domestic bank can read each other on the ATM and POS machine. So this creates interoperability at the cards level. But the Bakong is another level of interoperability. Now, why Bakong? The existing payment system, the pre-Bakong payment system was that we have banks and we have payment service provider. Banks were connected to the central clearinghouse at the central bank, the ACH. So if customer of bank A want to send money to customer of bank C, the MDI here refer to deposit taking microfinance institutions. They can do so through our system. Now, our central system only clear 2 times a day. We don't have an RTGS system, which is a real-time gross settlement. In many countries, it's taken for granted. When you transfer money, it happens almost automatically. Pre our Bakong system, it's only happened 2 times a day. So if you initiate a transaction after a certain timeline, you have to wait for the next day to get your money. And this is not very convenient. If you go to a KFC or McDonald's and you want to buy your burger and your Happy Meal and you have to wait and the person at the counter have to wait till the next day to get money before you can eat, then that's not working for an economy. And then we also have the payment service provider, the one that we allow to provide wallet, but not taking deposit or lend money. So the payment service provider are regulated as technology service provider. They're not banks, that they don't take deposit. They cannot make loans. They just provide a means of payment. And they themselves exist on silo. They're not connecting to anyone at all. And so what happened is that in Cambodia, the banks tend to serve the affluent segment of the market, and the payment service provider tend to serve people in the rural area. And when you don't have everyone talking to each other, and if you can imagine, if you use Spark and Vodafone and you can't call your family, this is get very complicated. And so in Cambodia, if you're not a customer of a bank and you're a customer of a payment service provider, it's almost impossible. It's not impossible, but almost or very expensive to send money across to each other. So if the parents live in the rural area and want to send money to the children studying in the city, they will have to go through a lot of hurdle to get that money to their children. Vice versa, if the children work in the city and they want to send money to their parent in the rural area and support them, then they will also have to go through a lot of hurdles to do that. So it's create what I would call a social divide between people living in the rural area and people living in the urban area when they can't connect to each other. Just like you have one group of the country using Spark and then one group using Vodafone, and you can't call each other. So you create blocks of people. So come the barter. So we want to introduce this to create interoperability. Now, maybe just the name itself, barter is the name of a Khmer temple built in the 9th century. And then the tower of this, the tour of this temple was then used to will replicate the Independence Monument on the top is a replica of this Bakong temple. And so for us, Bakong is a symbol of sovereignty and independence. As it's very important this is a very important project. And I think now many people know Cambodia, at least people in the tech space know Cambodia through this Bakong name. And also the logo, we use the structure of the temple as the logo of our Bakong payment system. We start to look into this Bakong in 2016. What is interesting with this was that in 2016, I would say 13, 14, after the global financial crisis, there's a lot of interest in, because there's no trust. After the global financial crisis, trust in the government and institutions and the media was completely losing its foothold. And so that's when the cryptocurrency come about. It's when blockchain come about. It's the idea is that we can create money without central bank, because when you make a payment to someone, and I want to make a payment to you, Jane, for instance, normally I will instruct my bank, and my bank will then try to get in touch with your bank and send them my instruction, then you get the money. Now, it's easy when your bank and my bank talk to each other, know each other. But if you don't have this, my bank will have to go through another bank, who then have to go through another bank, who then may have connection with your banks. And so each time that we go, we have to pay fees, and it becomes very expensive to do transaction. And it's within the control of the government, because the government issue money, the commercial banks then control how you make payment, who you make it to, etc. And so the idea of blockchain technology in the first place was to be completely independent from any government, from any authorities. And it's allow people to pay peer-to-peer. Like now, when I send a message to you through WhatsApp, for instance, you get the picture. But now the picture has no value because you have the picture, and then you can share it with other families members, and everyone has the picture, and that picture will have no value. The thing with blockchain is that once I send this picture to you, and why this picture then will have value, is that it will be erased from my WhatsApp chat. You only can have it the moment you decide to send it to somebody else. Then your WhatsApp chat, the picture will be deleted from your WhatsApp chat, and then therefore this picture in itself will have value. And this is the idea of blockchain in a way where you can send to each other peer-to-peer. I probably oversimplified this concept, but the idea is that. And so at that time, the National Bank of Cambodia was among the first central bank in the world to come out and say, we don't acknowledge Bitcoins as a currency, or you can't use Bitcoin in Cambodia. And that was and then we were criticized because it was the frenzies of Bitcoins and blockchains and cryptocurrency, and we were criticized. And so we thought, okay, then why not look further into this Bitcoin things? And by looking into Bitcoins, we discover blockchain technology, or the DLT, distributed ledger technology. So we established a working group in 2016. We defined what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring everyone under the same umbrella, create interoperability. And 2019, the pilot test come about, and 2020 launched this blockchain technology. We're actually among the first central bank in the world to introduce that. Now, why blockchain technology? It's a bit complicated. I'll go back a bit to this. Actually, I'll go forward. So, if you look at this side of the slide, you see banks connected to each other. Imagine without the red dot. And these banks and these money deposit-taking institutions are allowed to connect to each other because they're regulated as deposit-taking institutions, and they have to comply with a very stringent liquidity management. On the other side, you have the payment service provider. There are technology service provider. We regulate them as such. We don't want to overcomplicate things because they're the one who go and try to create financial inclusion on board the low income segment of the market. If we impose too much regulation on them, then it will be too costly. At the end of the day, the cost will be passed on to these people, and that's what be our objective. So if we want to bring them into this system, it implies that they will have to comply with the same stringent rules and regulations we impose on banks and deposit-taking institutions. And that's not what we want. We want to keep them as simple as they are, and as we want them to continue to serve the lower segment of the market without complicating their life. And so this is where blockchain technology come about, and easy is that they don't have to connect to a central clearing system anymore. They don't have to comply with any liquidity management. As long as they can disperse their digital money onto the wallet of their customer can send to any customer of the banks and the deposit-taking institutions. And this is the beauty of blockchain technology. And now with Bakong, we have everyone connected. The banks are connected to each other. The payment service provider are connected to each other. The payment service provider and the banks are now connected to each other. So with these connections, what can we do? We can do fund transfer. So if I'm a customer of any of these banks, actually there's more now, I can send money to another customer from another bank very easily through this Bakong technology. I can also make payment. We have made it very simple with a standard QR code. So now the mobile phone QR payment is very popular in Cambodia. We have about 4.5 million QR code acceptance merchant that accept QR code versus 50,000 POS machine. So if you go to Cambodia with a credit card, you'll have difficulties finding a place to make payment. And this is later when we develop the Bakong Tourist, where tourists can download the app, put in their credit card, and then start to, then the credit card will transform money in your credit card into, take debit money from your credit card into a wallet, and from that wallet you can scan and make payment just like the local. So one, as I said, is the motivation. I skipped this quickly. There's 4 motivations for introducing Bakong. One is to address the issue of interconnectivity and interoperability, as I mentioned to you. 2 is to promote financial inclusion. 3, efficiency in payment system. And 4 is the promotion, the use of local currencies. I mentioned to you, it's 85% dollarized in Cambodia. We want to promote the use of local currency, and that can be done using technology. So this is the first motivation that I already explained to you, is to allow people to send money from one person to another easily. So now it doesn't matter which banks, which payment service provider you use, you can still pay each other free of charge, by the way. So a parent in the rural area can now send money to their children in the urban area and pay for their school fee. This is how easy it gets also to make payment. The second motivation is financial inclusion. We want to, so when we talk about fintech, first things we have to a lot of the tech providers talk about financial inclusion, and sometimes you get lost on why is it that making payment electronically promote financial inclusion. So there's a few aspects to it. One is that payment, everyone make payment. Since the moment you start school, grade 1, you make payment, you go and buy sweet, you're going to buy bread or whatsoever. And if you make payment with cash, then your payment behavior disappear because it's anonymous. And again, this can open to another debate on anonymity of the usage of the payment system. So there's no history about you, but if you can make payment, buy and receive money on your mobile phone, then it will create a payment behavior. This is very important for you in your later life to be able to access to financial service. The bank lend you money if they know you. If they don't know you, they will not lend to you. If you have a history of borrowing, fine. The credit bureau will show them that you have a loan with the bank before, you made payment regularly, they know you, then they can make a payment. But if you have never had any borrowing before, if you're a student and you want a loan, then it's going to get very difficult without any information about you. So with this payment behavior, it's going to help you create some history about yourself. So the bank can see your cash flow and your payment behavior, and it can determine if you are credit worthy or not. The second aspect about this payment system is for seller, the vendor, the micro businesses, where they can very easily show to the bank their cash flow, their daily cash flow, and the banks can then assess how well their business is doing before they can give a credit. So it's helping people to access to financial services. This is an example of financial inclusion. Somebody who sell jasmine flowers on the street now have a QR code. You can pay them to buy these flowers. Someone who sell peanuts on the street do also have a QR code to receive payment. And now in Cambodia, many people don't go around with cash anymore, just with their mobile phone, and it's enough to make payment. And people prefer it that way because for this seller, they don't want to carry too much cash with them at the end of the day because of the security of it, because they have to go to a bank and deposit it, or because somebody will, their own family member can steal it from them, and it's no interest. And so they now prefer receive payment on their QR code and it goes direct into their bank account. So this is a very beautiful story of financial inclusion. With the extended feature, the wallet. So what also help with this Bagong system is that for smaller microfinance who can't afford to develop their own mobile application, they can encourage their customer to download a universal mobile application put out by the central bank, and then their customer can put in money in their wallet and make payment on QR code like everyone else. It's to also attain the motivation 3 is efficiency in payment system. It's real time, it's free of cost. More than this, we can also make payment across the border. So as of now, we can make payment through our QR code from our local bank account in Thailand, in Laos, in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in China. And in a few days, I'm going to Japan, Osaka, where we'll be launching our QR code connectivity with the Japanese payment system. The ease of increase the use of local currency. So many Cambodians has US dollar account, but they don't want their local currency account for trust, for convenience, for whatever reason, even though the currency has been very stable for the past 25 years. So we don't penalize them, but for those who want to use this cross-border connectivity, they have to open a bank account. So in local currencies, only people with local currency account can go and make payment with all these countries and these international scheme providers, so Alipay, WeChat, etc. For the inbound, so Thai, Laos, Vietnam, Japanese, Koreans, and Malaysian tourists who come to Cambodia and who want to make payment from their own mobile application from their own bank account, the merchant here in Cambodia also have to accept local currency. And this is how we managed to push through the use of local currency. If you see here, the value in orange is the use of local currency. It has tremendously increased from 2021 when we first introduced this. It's increased to 46 billion US dollar in equivalent US dollar in transactions. The number of transactions in local currency is as many as the number of transactions in US dollars. So this show the, we were happy to see this success, this achievement, because as a central bank, if people don't use the currency that we print, it's going to get very difficult to conduct monetary policy. We can't control money, especially if we don't have control over the printing of these money. So we don't print US dollar, but our country use US dollar, and therefore to conduct monetary policy in a dollarized economy require a lot of imagination. And therefore this is very important for us. In terms of the customer reach, here is 34 million for a population of 17 million. Of course, some will have 2 or 3 accounts, but it shows the depth of the penetrations of the Pakong payment system. In terms of the value of transactions is, I don't know how many fold of our GDP. Here you look at the value of transactions is 105 billion US dollar in USD plus 46 in equivalent in local currency, and our GDP is about 46 billion. So this is 2.5 times of our GDP. And why Pakong work? First, because it's a government-led private sector inclusive. There's probably many other similar system like Pakong, but it's privately run. And because it's privately run, it's very difficult to get everyone on board. Everyone wants to be the leader. But because this is led by the government, everyone they're more sort of encouraged to join this initiative. So we've got everyone in the banking system now a member of the Pakong payment system. 2, it creates interoperability between different institutions in the country. 3, it is scalable. It's not only used in the country, but also outside of the country. 3, it's multi-currency. So we don't just prioritize local currency. We understand it's going to be difficult. So we allow US dollar to also be transacted in this system. And 5, it's secure, efficient. So we were told that blockchain is unhackable. I don't know, really. They also said that Titanic will not sink, and then it sank on its first sail. But at least we will have to try. So with this blockchain technology, we know that it's going to be the most secured, at least as we know of at the moment. So it's safe and secured. Now, some key takeaways I take a very long time. Trust is fundamental. We need people to have trust in the system, in whoever provide this system, in order to have achieve our long-term financial inclusion role. Take leapfrogging. We have to take a leap of faith. When we started to work on this Pakong project with a startup, it's a startup company from Japan, we were laughed at. And I said, well, we're just a small central bank. We can't afford all these big tech providers. So we'll go with whoever, most efficient. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It turned out to be a very good partnership, because for this company, this is their first project with a government institution, with a central bank. They really wanted to show that they can do it. We also know not much, but we know the context. So with them, we co-developed. We didn't buy it off the shelf. We co-developed with them. And our project was actually mentioned by the Japanese Prime Minister as a very good story of co-creation between Japan and Southeast Asia and ASEAN. Many times it was cited by the Japanese, this co-creation where the Japanese has technology, the Cambodian has the expertise and the willingness to make it happen. And so we managed to make it successful. And so with this technology company, we're now on the same boat. We tell them, if you sing, I sing. If I sing, you sing. And so we better make it work together. It's a public-private collaboration. It's not just a central bank led. We work very closely with the private sector from the very early on. We said we're going to introduce this. That's going to affect some of your business because some banks, they're so big, they don't want to connect with any others. But we have to explain to them, you can't exist alone. You have to exist with others. And they accepted it and they've come on board with us. And that was quite a success initiative. It's locally digitalized designed, localized digital design, as I mentioned earlier. It's a collaboration with the Japanese industry. We also fortunate to have a very young population, tech savvy, want to try things new. And so this is also quite a key enabler to the success of the Bakong. And of course, we have the scalability of the technology itself to go across the border. And fortunate for us is that our partners across the region have trust in Bakong. They saw it themselves, they studied before they allow us to connect with them. And then, of course, there's COVID-19. As I said, we introduced it in 2020. Without COVID-19, I'm not sure how the adoption is going to be like. But thankfully, COVID-19, silver lining of it, everyone adopt the Bakong quite easily because people don't want to have to hold on the cash, the banknote that is dirty and virus. So thank you.